Trump's deportation agenda versus Judge Boasberg, a legal showdown. Let's dive in. Intro. All right, let's dive in. Here's what we're talking about today. Saturday night, March 15, 2025, U.S. deportation planes packed with alleged Venezuelan gang members are en route to El Salvador. Then, bam! A judge slaps an emergency order mid-flight. Planes turn back, chaos erupts. This weekend, President Trump's latest push to expel suspected Tren de Aragua members under a dusty 227-year-old law slammed headfirst into Judge James Boasberg's gavel, and the fallout's electric. Trump says it's a no-brainer. These are dangerous criminals threatening American streets, and he's got the power to act fast. Boasberg counters, not so fast. This risks trampling rights and rushing justice. With gang fears spiking, asylum pleas in the mix, and a deadline ticking as courts scramble, the stakes couldn't be higher. Is this Trump's bold stand to secure the nation, a decisive strike against a growing menace, or a reckless power grab that could deport the innocent alongside the guilty? Maybe it's a judge bravely checking an overzealous executive, or an unelected roadblock stalling a crisis fix. Here's the key question lighting up this clash. Who's got the upper hand in this showdown? Trump's urgency or Boasberg's caution? We're diving into the chaos, the law, and the argument from every angle. Let's break it down from all sides. Setting the stage. Context matters. Before we get into the details, let's set the stage. Here's the background you need to know. Let's rewind and unpack how we got to this explosive standoff between President Trump and Judge James Boasberg over deportations. March 15, 2025, Trump signs an executive order invoking the 227-year-old Alien Enemies Act. His goal? Fast-track the removal of hundreds of Venezuelan migrants linked to the Tren de Aragua gang. The law hasn't been used since World War II, but Trump argues it's the perfect tool. Within hours, ICE starts loading planes. The White House says these individuals, some as young as 14, are part of an invasion of criminal elements flooding U.S. cities with violence. By Saturday night, planes were already airborne from Harlingen, Texas, headed to El Salvador with deportees aboard, until Judge Boasberg, the chief U.S. district judge in Washington, D.C., slammed the brakes with a temporary restraining order, demanding those flights turn back mid-air. The numbers tell a stark story. ICE reports over 13,000 gang arrests in 2024 alone, with Tren de Aragua, a gang born in Venezuela's lawless prisons, blamed for murders, extortion, and drug trafficking from Colorado to New York. Trump's team points to this as justification, arguing the gang's U.S. foothold, tied to an exodus of 7 million Venezuelans since 2014, threatens national security. The proclamation leaned on the 1798 law, which lets the president detain or deport alien enemies from nations staging an invasion or predatory incursion, here redefined as gang activity rather than a state-led war. Within hours, 2 flights landed in San Salvador, where El Salvador's president Nayib Bukele welcomed 261 alleged gang members into his mega prisons, tweeting a cheeky "oopsie too late" with a laughing emoji, as Boasberg's order rolled out. But here's where it gets messy. Boasberg's ruling, first blocking 5 Venezuelans named in an ACLU lawsuit, then expanded to all under Trump's order, came after immigrant advocates cried foul. The ACLU and Democracy Forward filed suit at 2 a.m. Saturday, claiming many deportees were asylum seekers, mislabeled as gang members, some flagged just for tattoos. They argue the Alien Enemies Act, last used to intern Japanese Americans in the 1940s, only applies in declared wars or clear invasions, not against a criminal group, no matter how vicious. Boasberg agreed there's a serious legal question, noting no war exists with Venezuela, and ordered a 14-day pause to dig deeper, with a hearing set for late March. Mainstream takes diverge fast. Reuters frames Boasberg's block as a vital check on Trump's executive overreach, spotlighting due process risks. The New York Times quotes ACLU's Lee Gullert, warning of irreparable harm to deportees facing Salvadoran jails or Venezuelan persecution. On the flip side, posts on X from figures like Elon Musk blast Boasberg as a progressive activist judge coddling criminals, while Trump's press secretary Caroline Leavitt claims 300 Tren de Aragua terrorists were already nabbed. Outlets like Breitbart echo this, calling the judge's move a betrayal of American safety. Official statements fuel the fire. Attorney General Pam Bondi slammed Boasberg for supporting terrorists, while Venezuela's government decried Trump's law as a throwback to Nazi concentration camps. Historically, the Alien Enemies Act is a relic, invoked in 1812, World War I, and World War II, always tied to enemy nations, not gangs. Trump's use stretches it into uncharted territory, sparked by his campaign pledge to purge gang members, drug dealers, and cartels. Add in El Salvador's deal to take 300 deportees for $6 million, and you've got a legal, political, and diplomatic powder keg. Was this a calculated security play or a hasty power grab? That's the stage. Now let's dissect it. Let's analyze and consider different perspectives. This clash isn't just about policy, it's about the emotions fueling both sides: fear, anger, hope, desperation. These aren't just political arguments, they're life or death stakes depending on where you stand. Liberal/progressive view. For Trump supporters, this is about rage and urgency. They see blood on the streets, innocent Americans robbed, assaulted, even murdered by criminals who shouldn't be here in the first place. They hear about Tren de Aragua gangsters carving out their own territories, recruiting teenagers and trafficking drugs right under our noses. To them, Judge Boasberg's ruling isn't some noble act of restraint. It's a gut punch. Another example of activist judges blocking the will of the people, siding with criminals over citizens, and leaving everyday Americans vulnerable. Their frustration is raw. How many more have to die before we act? Trump's move isn't just about enforcement. It's about justice, about taking back control before it's too late. Conservative/libertarian view. On the other hand, immigrant rights activists and legal scholars feel a deep sense of betrayal and dread. To them, this isn't about crime, it's about survival. They see Venezuelan refugees who fled a collapsing country, desperately seeking safety, only to be thrown onto a plane with no trial, no chance to plead their case. Some were kids, barely 14, labeled gangsters because of a tattoo or a wrong place, wrong time arrest. They see the ghosts of history: Japanese internment, post-9/11 paranoia, ICE raids gone wrong. To them, Trump's order isn't just about security. It's a dangerous overreach, a precedent that could rip apart families, wrongly exile people, and turn the U.S. into a place where mere suspicion gets you deported. Independent/pragmatic view, GE, balancing global trade with domestic resilience. Then there's the exhausted middle. Americans who feel trapped between fear and fairness. They know gangs are a real threat. They don't want violence spilling into their neighborhoods. But they also wonder, what if we get this wrong? What if we send someone back to their death, not because they were guilty, but because they couldn't prove their innocence in time? They hear Trump's urgency, but they also see the cracks in his approach. Maybe there's a better way: targeted crackdowns, better screening, stronger due process. But who's listening to the middle when both sides are shouting? At its core, this isn't just law. It's about whose fear wins: the fear of crime or the fear of injustice, the fear of gangs overrunning cities or the fear of America losing its moral compass. That's the battle playing out right now, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Let's react: commentary and opinions. Now let's break it down. Here's my take on what's really happening. Let's step back and weigh what's really at stake in this Trump vs. Boasberg clash. On one hand, Trump's team had planes in the air, ready to deport over 300 alleged Venezuelan gang members this weekend alone, until Judge Boasberg hit the brakes. Short term, that's chaos. Flights turned mid-air, migrants stuck in limbo, and El Salvador's President Bukele tweeting snarky jabs about U.S. indecision. Imagine being an ICE agent that night. You load a plane, thinking it's a done deal, only to get a call mid-flight: turn back, order blocked. Suddenly, it's a logistical and legal nightmare. one that cost taxpayers $500,000 in a single night just for the logistics flip-flop per 2024 deportation expense averages. Politically, it's red meat for Trump's base, who see this as proof of a soft judiciary, while immigrant advocates cheer Boasberg as a bulwark against overreach. Socially, it's a split screen, urban communities rattled by gang fears versus protests outside courthouses demanding due process. Zoom out to the long term and the stakes get even bigger. Economically, mass deportations aren't cheap. ICE's 2024 budget already tops $8 billion, and scaling up could balloon that by millions more, especially if legal battles drag on. Politically, this is a powder keg. Trump's flexing the Alien Enemies Act could set a precedent for future presidents to bypass Congress in a crisis, real or hyped. If Boasberg's block holds, it might embolden judges nationwide to challenge executive moves, shifting power dynamics in Washington. Socially, we're talking about trust. Trust in a system to keep streets safe versus trust that it won't sweep up innocents in a rush. FBI stats pegged Trend Aragua's U.S. footprint at dozens of crimes in 2025 already. Murders, extortion. But the ACLU counters that only 10% of those deported had verified gang tie. That gap's the rub. How do you balance real threats with fair process? Here's a what-if to chew on. Imagine a bigger gang surge hits tomorrow, say a coordinated Tren de Aragua push in 5 cities, overwhelming local cops. Would our current laws, tangled in court delays, hold up, or would Trump's emergency powers start looking like the only play? Flip it. What if half those deportees were asylum seekers with clean records? Would we stomach sending them back to chaos in Venezuela, where 7 million have fled since 2015? Logic cuts both ways. Trump's camp isn't wrong that gang violence spikes fear. Denver's seen a 30% uptick in migrant-led crime this year, per local PD. But Boasberg's pause isn't baseless either. The 1798 Act was built for wartime enemies, not peacetime policing, and skipping hearings risks deporting the wrong people. The data's messy. ICE nabbed 13,000 gang members in 2024, but thousands more deportations get overturned on appeal. You block. This isn't about picking a winner, it's about what holds up under pressure. Short-term, Boasberg's block buys time but frustrates action. Long-term, Trump's push could either harden borders or unravel due process. Economically, it's a money pit either way, litigation or logistics. Politically, it's a tug-of-war over who controls the levers. Socially, it's fear versus fairness, with real lives in the crosshairs. The system's creaking, too slow for some, too reckless for others. What's the breaking point? Take action. Final thoughts and wrap up. So, what does this all mean? Let's wrap it up with some final thoughts and what you can do next. All right, we've broken down the Trump vs. Judge Boasberg showdown from every angle: security vs. rights, executive power vs. judicial oversight, and the high-stakes consequences of fast-track deportations. Planes were in the air, orders were issued, and now the whole nation is watching. But here's the real question: who got it right? Was Trump's move a necessary step to crack down on dangerous gangs before they gain more ground? Or was it an overreach that risks sweeping up innocent people in the rush? Did Boasberg step in to uphold due process, or did he just stall a critical national security effort? What would you do? Greenlight deportations to keep the country safe, or hit pause to ensure due process? Drop your take in the comments, and if you've got a third option, let's hear it. Best argument gets pinned. Don't just pick a side, bring the receipts. Got stats, a legal argument, or a personal perspective? Share it. If you're fired up, take the conversation further. Post your thoughts on X using Deportation Clash and tag us. We'll highlight the sharpest takes in an upcoming episode. If this deep dive got you thinking, hit like and share it with someone who needs to hear both sides. And if you want more fearless breakdowns of the biggest political flashpoints, subscribe to Left, Right, and Center. We're not here to tell you what to think, we're here to challenge how you think. See you in the comments.